Alright, fellas, so welcome back. We have been working towards an inventory overhaul utilizing scriptable objects primarily as the data driver for the inventory, and then separating out my UI from being tightly coupled with the inventory script. If we want to take a look here, I could go over, I guess, what I've done. Firstly, let's take a look here. I've been using this Brain FM thing. Pretty nice, to be honest. Like, it literally, I was instantly focused with this because it kind of just drowned out all of the existential dread and terrible thoughts in my head and allowed me to focus on the inventory itself. That's pretty cool. Anyway, fellas, let's take a look at the code here. Let's make this a little bit bigger, okay? So I have been working for a while on this, as you saw, an hour and 30 minutes. What we've done is we've started the overhaul. Basically, we made this a scriptable object instead of a mono behavior. Reason being, we don't need the inventory to have a position in the world. It does not need to be attached to the player. We can simply instantiate the data structure, which is what this is, and reference it as necessary. So this is where the event is going to be started, right? We will use this here to raise the event, and I haven't quite gotten there yet, but what we're going to do is go through what I've changed. I guess we could take a look at the source control, actually. Yeah, this is showing, like, overall the changes that I've made, right? I removed these references because they were literally references to the scroll view. I changed that to now be an item slot, which I've created as a new scriptable object. Essentially just holds an item, stack size, and index. It is very similar to something that I'm using on the UI that I will probably revamp. This relevant scroll view stuff, I believe, is going to be changed with events. All of the relevant scroll view code should go over to the relevant UI and will be handled there accordingly. This is where you'll start seeing the most changes, I think. Add item, remove item, drop item. There's less lines going on, and the main code itself is significantly shorter. You'll see I was referring to like just component after component there, and it was really hard to read. Now we're very clearly just removing a specific item at a given slot, setting the stack size to 0. Same here. If we're adding an item, if the new item is null, we just return. If the new item has a stack, meaning it is stackable, because this is just a boolean, we will find the item in the slot if available. Otherwise, we will go back to non-stacking behavior. And all this is doing is just increasing the slots. Basically, what this is doing, I've separated out the UI data from the actual inventory data. So now this inventory script can be utilized by both the gear and inventory systems, or any other inventory systems that I want to, and it's strictly the data. So we can look at the data. It's a simple array, so we can easily add to that array and subtract to that array. The goal with that now being I will connect it up to the UI scripts. Let's take a look at the inventory UI. So if we do the same thing here, we could see what we've changed, right? Originally, the inventory script itself that we were just looking at here, originally, this variable right here was containing the data for the UI that is now here. This may seem like not a big deal, right? But when it comes to decoupling this code and making it so that it is more extensible and easier to work with, it makes an immense amount of sense to do it this way. And this is only the beginning. It's kind of like an overview of what I've done in the last hour and a half, is getting this stuff started. Basically, when I made my changes in the inventory script originally, it led me down this kind of path within Unity. When I would go back in it would try to compile and it would send me some errors back. It allowed me to see very easily where I needed to change also in, say, the gear script, because the gear script is a child of inventory. It inherits, you know, all of the inventory stuff. So we were really easily able to do a simple conversion on this as well. And then it kept leading us further down into the UI scripts. Then it also led us into the player combat script. You can see how it led us to a lot of different scripts that really should have nothing to do with the inventory. But they are technically requiring some bit of information from the inventory. So you'll see like the player combat script here. It's literally just trying to figure out what weapon we have, okay? So if I go to the weapon slot variable, that'll highlight everything. You'll see with player input, if the weapon slot item is null, we return. Otherwise, we try to see what weapon is there and do a different attack based on that. Or I don't even think it's a different attack. It's just literally this is where the input is for that weapon. You're checking if there's a weapon to use, essentially. So instead of the player combat script utilizing this weapon slot and getting it from the player gear like this, we could probably just fire off an event whenever we switch weapons that would then determine this logic here. It could probably just be with a Boolean or something. We might not do that, we might do that. We're not sure on that architecture. We're kind of getting a little too far out of the scope of what I'm currently working towards changing, but this is coming very rapidly in the near future. I can see it just on the horizons here. All right, fellas, 3 hours into focus here. We have Unity compiling again. We've got the very basics of the interaction working. We just gotta fix a couple more things. Okay, so I'm about 4 hours, 37 minutes into this overhaul. We've gotten over a lot of the initial barriers of entry. We've overhauled a ton of code. You hear all of these scripts. I've separated out the player input now to a different script. I'm going to be overhauling that at some point as well. But we started doing that for the inventory HUD. If you look now on the inventory UI script, we've got a ton of changes here. It's changing kind of a main reference along with a couple transforms to make things work out. I had to actually, on the HUD, you'll see the inventory and equipment scroll views here. I've had to add an empty game object to each one of them as a parent of the scroll view. I was originally using the scroll view as the parent, but with events I noticed when I was setting active to false to hide the scroll views themselves, it was no longer receiving events, which means I couldn't toggle it back on, which was really fucking stupid. So it was a pretty simple fix, but just kind of an annoying. I don't think I've shared yet. All we've gotten working so far is toggle. We're 4.5 hours and we've changed a lot of code, but all we have working right now is the toggle. And this is kind of why I didn't want to jump into that the other day, because it was just going to be a nightmare. It was going to take forever. But we are utilizing events for this. We call one thing, and it is responsible for toggling this on and off now, and it is very nice. It's the UI's responsibility to listen for the event. Fucking cool. Now what I'm working on is adding items to the inventory at the beginning here. I'm supposed to be getting some starting items, but it doesn't appear as though they are working properly. So, unfortunately, we gotta go back into another deep dive here. But I gotta say, Brain FM's, I'm telling you, it's really keeping me focused. Maybe it's just a placebo right now. But just nice noise, not very distracting. I'm telling you, it keeps the dark thoughts at bay. Alright, so I'm gonna call it for the night. I've got a really stupid bug right now where for some reason anytime I try to add an item to my inventory, I get a null reference. The null reference is on this line, basically saying that this is null. But when I change that and get rid of that null reference, it doesn't fix the issue, it just returns -1. Which shouldn't be the case, so I've messed up something along the way. And I really just can't figure it out right now. I'm honestly too tired. Done too much today. I've made a huge dent into this overhaul, and realistically, I've gotten most of it done. This should be considerably the easy part. Might as well just get some sleep. Okay, fellas, here's a little update. We are at 32 minutes into this kind of session today, starting out and getting back into this stuff after yesterday. So we've compiled a pretty nice list of things we need to work through here. If you take a look at all of this is kind of my documentation of what I have to do still with this inventory overhaul. Basically everything related to the inventory is going to show up here. So one of the latest things I just added, so item interaction was not working. I went through the code, figured out what was going on. The camera was being referenced in a way that didn't make sense, so I changed how that was referenced, and now it's looking pretty good. Now though, when I actually go to press F to interact and pick up the item, I am interacting with the inventory as if it were a mono behavior. And that has led me down an entirely new rabbit hole of things to change, so I notated that there. Because there's about, it looks like 9 files that reference the inventory as a mono behavior. So that's going to be fun. What I think I'm going to dive into right now is add item not working. I couldn't figure that out last night. I'm confident that I can figure this out. And I think that's going to unleash a lot of bugs, or it should fix a lot of bugs, I think. It should get a lot of the functionality back. Basically, right now what I'm trying to do is get my functionality back to where I was for the last commit. And that might take, I'm telling you guys, all week. It might take all fucking week. But we're going to do our best and get cracking here. But going in. Okay, so we're like another almost 2 hours into today's session, and I mean I've fixed some things, but it just keeps going, man. We've got the ability to drag items right now, and there was a time when I was able to drag this over here and it would actually clear this out properly. And you could drag it back. Oh, it looks like something's fucked. Something is super just fucked going on right now. That kind of identifies, I don't know, like some of the behavior issues that I'm seeing. When I drag an item over to the equipment, something's completely breaking and I'm not updating this icon properly. But I am updating this value, so that kind of simplifies things. I'm just kind of tired of doing this, to be honest. I don't want to do this anymore, and I might just not do it anymore today. Might just be done again. Slow and steady progress, fellas. It wins the race. Alright, fellas, so I turned off the little beeping device, Brain FM. So we're about 30 minutes past the last clip here. I went outside with the dog for a bit. I mostly sat down here though and did some more work and just kept pushing through. It appears as though some of my things that I had set up in the past were kind of, I don't know, they deteriorated in some capacity. Basically, some stuff with my equipment, the difference between my equipment and my inventory is dynamic, my equipment is static, okay? So all of these elements were not set, there was nothing here, and when I was trying to swap stuff over, it was breaking really bad. I also had to manually set all of the indices on those, which is kind of annoying. I might need to figure out something to do with that later, but for now, this is kind of working as I expect it to. And I think it's bug-free right now. I think this is what it was doing prior to the update. Now, I just got some sort of null reference. I'm assuming that has to do with me clicking the background. I might need to fix that right now. I'll handle that, but then I also need to finalize... Actually, I think I might have done it. The objective. I think the objective is working, and I just need to give myself the test items. So let me do that really quick. Into the inventory. No, it would be the game mode right now that contains the items. Now we're spawning sword test, but I'm also going to spawn in gun test and dungeon pass. And that should allow us to breeze through the level here. All we gotta do is find the end of the dungeon. Oh, fuck me. Now we've got nothing, son of a bitch. Okay. I have a feeling it's around here somewhere. We've got these zombies on like insta-gib mode right now, which is not ideal, I'll be honest, but makes this a bit more of a challenge, I guess. There's the dungeon end that we're looking for, so interact. We've interacted properly. Press next to dungeon. That did give us a issue, so we are gonna have to fix that now as well. Cool. I'm taking a look at the code right now. This is part of what I was talking about earlier. So all of these scripts, unfortunately, are utilizing this inventory as a mono behavior still, and all we have to do is just change that out in a similar capacity to what I had already done. So manager.player, and instead of getting the inventory like this, we're going to call player inventory because that's where it's actually set. Okay? So same with this, we're going to do player gear at display, and that should do the trick there. And we should be able to easily just go through now and see a game loop completion, would be my guess. Nice. We got a completion, and we've still got our inventory, which is excellent. Alright, fellas, so I turned this back on for a bit. I've been going for probably about an hour now. And I've powered through. First of all, I cleaned up this a tad bit. We've got this into the done category, because that was kind of, you know, the beginning of our research stage for events and all that. And I started keeping track of a couple things there. I've decided I'm going to start keeping track of those probably over here from now on, but that's done. The inventory refactor is majorly done as well. I wrote a little note to myself here that the feature is complete, but there's still a couple things I'd like to consider addressing in the future here. So I'm gonna keep that here for now, because I just can't really process what I need to do with this right now. I started making some notes as well here on a game mode overhaul. I think that's going to be one of my next tasks. This kind of presented itself to me as something I've been neglecting, and something that I think will help in the future of designing this game pretty soon. Just getting different game modes like up and running very quickly. Basically, what that's going to force me to do is restructure that file to respond to events. So here I said that the game mode should listen to the on game state changed event, which I already have set up and doing other things. And it might just be half-assed and I need to finish it type of thing. But basically the game mode will listen to that event, and when the game state changes, will run functionality accordingly. And either, set up a game, restart a game, whatever. You'll see that nothing has really changed. I've got my debug items in right now, but we are able to actually do all of the same stuff that we were doing before, but we're utilizing events. And fellas, I don't know if it's just placebo or the fact that I've just gotten through probably 10 hours of overhaul work and brain thought, but it feels so good. It feels snappy. It feels wonderful. It's like I'm coding properly for the first time in my entire life, or at least in my Unity development career. You know what I mean? It feels pretty goddamn good. That's all I have to say. So I'm gonna commit this because it's been a long time coming. I have a lot of unsaved changes. Like, I repeat, I have a lot of unsaved changes. Fellas, I've officially reached the moment where I'm ready to commit. A little sip of the bourbon here, and we're going to just do this really quick. First of all, let's just look at the status. Take a look at that, fellas. Look at all these modified files. All these files and resources. We're just going to add every single one of them. Major overhaul of inventory and related scripts utilizing events. Event structure. What about event architecture? Oh yeah, that's a big word, boys. And just like that, we have pushed a major change into our version control, which is fucking sick. Pretty happy to be like done with that. I feel like actually ahead of schedule, which is pretty cool. I mean, technically I wanted to do this last week, I guess. Like, sure, I wanted to do this last week, but I don't think it's that big of a deal to not work on something for a bit in order to give yourself some space from the project to really digest what you've done, to really sit there and be like, okay, my brain has really grasped everything about the project. I know what I need to do. I need time to think. I can't just sit here and like every single day, every second. It rots my brain for sure if I do that with anything. I'm a man of chaos. We embrace the chaos. We do what we feel like doing that day. And there's a lot of things that we feel like doing overall, you know? We got the music shit going. We got the game development. We got the video games that we occasionally don't hate ourselves when we play. Other than that, like, you know, I've got the other stuff that's not that important, like work and like taking care of my life and not leaving a mess everywhere. So we're on the other side now. We know how to use events really well. I feel like I've not fully mastered them, but I know how to leverage them now, and it doesn't take that long. It's not that hard to think about. I just get in there and I start slapping events. It's silly. And it's so easy. You can do so many things. It was so quick and easy to get that UI synced up. When I enable and disable the inventory UI with the E key, that was pretty nice. And then to sync it up like first try on the death panel and on the objective panel, it's a glorious feeling. Events are sick. They are something huge that I was missing in my development toolbox. And now we got it, baby.